I can't believe you're still defending him. It was a mistake, and you know it. Why can't you just admit you were wrong?
It's strange looking back at my life before everything fell apart. I was comfortable. Things were simple. My name's Jake, and I had a good job in sales. I had a nice apartment, a steady routine, and, for the past 4 years, Emily. Emily was everything to me. She was smart, driven, beautiful. We had big dreams. The kind of dreams you talk about late at night when the world feels small and everything seems possible. We were supposed to be together forever. That's what I told myself, anyway. I guess I was wrong. Jake, we're running late, Emily's voice echoed from the kitchen, breaking me from my thoughts. I smiled, feeling that familiar warmth in my chest. Emily was always the more punctual one. I appreciated that about her, how she kept things on track when I was just happy going with the flow. I glanced at my watch. All right, I'm coming, I called out, grabbing my jacket. She looked over at me as I walked in, her smile was soft but distant. I'll be ready in a minute. Don't start the car yet. I nodded, watching her head into the bedroom. She'd been acting this way for a few months now, more distant, more distracted. At first, I thought it was just work. She was up for a big promotion at the firm, and I knew how important it was to her. She'd been putting in late nights, and sometimes, she'd even leave the house before I woke up. But even when we were together, something felt off. The moments when we'd just sit and talk like we used to, laughing over stupid things or dreaming about the future, were becoming rare. Now, it seemed like she was always thinking about something else. When I tried to talk about it, she'd brush it off. I'm just busy, Jake. You know how it is. I should have noticed. I should have seen the signs. But I didn't. The sound of her phone buzzing on the counter pulled me out of my thoughts. She'd forgotten to pick it up, which wasn't like her. Normally, she'd jump at the slightest noise, always quick to respond to work emails, or texts, or whatever she had going on. I walked over to it, picked it up, and just as I was about to put it back, I saw her boss's name flash on the screen. Alex. It shouldn't have meant anything. But the way it made my stomach tighten told me it did. I set the phone down quickly, almost feeling guilty for looking at it, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. But then I remembered what she'd said the other night, about how Alex had been helping her out with some of the more complicated projects. How he was just a good friend, she'd assured me. I shook my head. I was being stupid. There was nothing going on. All right, let's go, Emily said, walking back into the room, pulling me from my thoughts. She smiled again, that same soft, almost distant smile, and I smiled back, trying to push the weird feeling out of my mind. We walked out together, and I couldn't help but wonder when everything had changed. When had she started to drift away? Maybe it was when she started spending more time at work, or when she'd become obsessed with her next promotion. Maybe it was even before that. Maybe it was just me not noticing, too focused on the things I thought were important, work, keeping up with the day-to-day. But whatever it was, I didn't see it coming. The betrayal, the silence, the distance, it all hit me when I least expected it. I should have known, but I didn't. I couldn't have known how everything would unravel, how quickly the perfect life I thought I had would crumble. And that was the first crack in the life I thought would last forever. It's funny how you don't realize something's wrong until it's too late. Emily and I used to be inseparable. But recently, I started noticing the distance between us growing wider. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself that things would go back to normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping through my fingers. We were sitting on the couch one evening, watching a movie. Or at least, I was trying to watch. Emily, on the other hand, was glued to her phone, tapping away at messages or emails or whatever it was that had her attention. I could hear the soft clicks of her fingers, and I felt this strange knot forming in my stomach. "Emily," I said, my voice careful. I didn't want to come off as demanding, but I had to say something. "You've been on your phone a lot lately. Can we just, watch the movie? Like we used to?" She looked up at me, her eyes tired. "I know, I'm sorry. I've just got so much to catch up on at work." I nodded, trying not to let my frustration show. "I get it. But we've barely spent any time together this week. Can't it wait for just one night?" She sighed and set her phone down, finally giving me her full attention. "I know, Jake. It's just everything's piling up. I'll make it up to you, I promise." I tried to smile, but it didn't feel right. "It's not just about tonight, Em. It's like you're here, but you're not really here. You're always somewhere else. With work. With Alex." The name slipped out before I could stop it. Her eyes flickered, but she quickly masked it with a laugh. "Jake, really? You're still on that," she said, shaking her head. "You know Alex is just a colleague. Nothing more." But I could see it, the brief hesitation, the way she avoided looking directly at me. It didn't sit right, and it hurt. I leaned back, trying to gather my thoughts. "I don't know, Em. I just feel like I'm losing you." Her face softened, and for a moment, I saw that familiar spark in her eyes. "Jake, you're not losing me. I'm just busy. You know how it is. I need this promotion, and it's not going to happen if I keep slacking off. You should understand that." I bit my lip, feeling the weight of the silence that followed. It wasn't about the promotion. It wasn't even about the phone or Alex. It was that something had changed, and I couldn't figure out what it was. "I get it," I said finally, my voice tight. "But it's hard, you know? You're always gone. You're always with them, at work, with Alex." "Jake, stop," she said, her voice sharp. "I'm not doing anything wrong. You need to trust me. I'm doing this for us. Don't you want me to succeed? Don't you want me to be happy?" Of course I wanted her to be happy. I wanted her to succeed. But I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that there was more to it than that. Something was off. Something I couldn't put my finger on. And the more I tried to ask, the more she shut me out. "I want to trust you," I said quietly. "But I don't know if I can anymore." There was a long pause, and she didn't speak for a while. Finally, she stood up, walking toward the kitchen. "I think you're overthinking this, Jake. Maybe you need to relax a little. Have some trust." But I couldn't shake it. I couldn't shake the feeling that this, whatever this was the first crack in the perfect life I'd thought we had. The gap between us was growing, and I wasn't sure how to fix it. As she walked away, I sank deeper into the couch, feeling the weight of her words, of the distance that had opened up between us. I thought maybe I could wait it out. I thought maybe things would get better. But deep down, I knew something had already changed. And no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, the crack was already there. I don't think I'll ever forget the moment I found out. It wasn't anything dramatic, no big confrontation. It was just a text message that changed everything. One message. That's all it took. I'd been having a pretty normal day. Work was busy, but nothing I couldn't handle. I got home later than usual, expecting to see Emily in the living room, maybe reading or on her phone like she always was. But when I opened the door, the apartment felt empty. There was no soft music playing, no sounds of her moving around. I didn't think much of it at first. She was probably just in the bedroom. But then, as I walked past the kitchen counter, I saw her phone lying face up, buzzing with a message. It wasn't the first time I'd seen her phone unattended, and it probably wouldn't have meant anything, except for the name that popped up on the screen. Alex. I froze. I don't know why, but the name alone made my heart sink. The same Alex I'd heard her talk about so many times. He's just helping me out with work stuff, she'd always say. But something in my gut told me it wasn't just work. I'd felt it before, something in the air when she talked about him. The way her voice softened, the way her eyes would linger on her phone when his name came up. I tried to shake it off, told myself I was being paranoid. But the longer I stood there, staring at the phone, the more I couldn't ignore the feeling crawling up my spine. Then, I made the mistake. I picked up the phone. Just for a second. I shouldn't have done it. I know that now. But at that moment, I couldn't stop myself. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it. Thankfully, she hadn't changed her passcode. I went straight to the message thread with Alex, my heart pounding in my ears. And there it was. A picture of them. Emily and Alex, together, smiling, a little too close for comfort. A photo from the night before. It wasn't just a friendly picture. The way they stood, the way they looked at each other, it wasn't something that should have been happening behind my back. My mind was spinning, and I could barely breathe. I didn't know what to feel first, anger? Betrayal? Disbelief? But then, I read the message that followed. Emily had sent it. Last night was perfect. I don't think I can go back after this. Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. I dropped her phone on the counter, suddenly feeling like the walls were closing in. My chest was tight, and I could barely think straight. No. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But deep down, I knew it was. I didn't know how long I stood there, just staring at the phone. Every part of me wanted to throw it against the wall. Every part of me wanted to scream at her for doing this to me, for betraying me in the worst way possible. But what would be the point? What would yelling, screaming, doing anything accomplish now? Instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I walked to the bedroom. She was sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone when I walked in. I could see the relief in her eyes when she looked up at me. Like she'd been waiting for me to come home, ready to give me that same soft, distant smile. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. The cracks, the distance, it was all right there, and now, I knew the truth. "Jake," she said, standing up. "You're home early." I didn't let her finish. "Who is Alex?" I asked, my voice sharp though it felt hollow, like the question was being ripped from me. Her eyes went wide, and I could see the panic in them. For a moment, I thought she might try to deny it. Lie to me. But instead, she just stood there, frozen, caught in the act. "Jake, please," she started, her voice trembling. "It's not what you think." I didn't mean for things to go this far. I took a step closer to her. "Then what is it, Emily? What's going on between you two?" She swallowed hard, her face crumpling with guilt. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't mean for it to happen. But I don't know, Jake. It just did. I didn't expect it. My blood was boiling now. I could feel my fists clenching at my sides. I wanted to yell, to make her feel the pain she'd caused me. But I stayed silent. I didn't know what else to say. I was getting lost in work, in everything. And Alex, he's always there, and he understands. I didn't want to lose you, Jake, but I couldn't stop myself. Her words felt like daggers, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. This wasn't my Emily. The woman who had promised me the world was standing in front of me, broken and confessing to something I never thought I'd hear. "Did you ever love me?" I asked, barely above a whisper. Her face fell, and she didn't respond right away. And that silence? It was the worst answer I could have gotten. I turned away, not knowing what to do, what to say. I was shaking, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't know who she was anymore. I didn't know who I was. "I need space," I said, my voice steady but empty. "I can't do this right now." She didn't stop me as I walked out. The sound of the door clicking shut behind me was the last thing I heard as I stepped into the hallway, leaving everything I thought I knew behind. It wasn't until then that I realized everything had changed. And I couldn't go back. The silence was deafening. I sat in my car, parked outside the apartment, staring at the building in front of me. It was hard to believe it was the same place I'd come home to every night for the last few years. It felt different now. Empty. Like a shell of what it used to be. I was numb, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. She betrayed me. She cheated on me. The thoughts wouldn't stop. The image of Emily and Alex, their smiles, their closeness, kept flashing in my mind. I couldn't escape it. I didn't want to go back inside, but I didn't know where else to go. I didn't have a plan. What did I even do now? I tried calling a few people, friends, anyone. But no one answered. Maybe they could feel my pain, or maybe they were just as confused as I was. Either way, I was alone. I finally drove to a small diner nearby. I needed to be out of that apartment. I needed to breathe. So, I sat there, nursing a cup of coffee, staring out the window, watching the world go by like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I tried not to think about it. I tried not to feel the anger rising in me. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, Emily, in that picture with Alex. I saw her lying to me. All these years, I thought. All this time I trusted her, and she. I rubbed my hands over my face, trying to clear my thoughts, but it was no use. The weight of everything was crashing down on me. The betrayal. The lies. It was suffocating. I didn't realize how much time had passed until the waitress came by with the check. I paid, then walked back to my car, my steps slow, each one feeling heavier than the last. I didn't want to go back to the apartment. But where else would I go? The place where Emily and I had built a life together now felt like a prison. I drove around aimlessly, not knowing where I was going, until my phone buzzed. It was a text from Emily. "Jake, I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. Please, can we talk? I never meant for this to happen." I stared at the screen for a long time, my thumb hovering over the reply button. I didn't know what to say. There was so much I wanted to yell at her, so much anger I wanted to unload. But I didn't know if I could find the words. Instead, I locked the phone and tossed it onto the passenger seat. I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with her right now. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed at a cheap motel, just trying to sleep, but I couldn't. I kept seeing Emily's face, hearing her voice. Her apology meant nothing. What was it worth, really? She'd already done the damage. She'd already crossed the line. I got up in the middle of the night, pacing the small room. The air was thick with the weight of everything I couldn't change. How could I even look at her again? How could I ever trust her after this? The next few days were a blur of anger and confusion. I didn't go back to the apartment. I didn't talk to Emily. I couldn't. I just needed to breathe, to think. But no matter how far I drove, how much I tried to lose myself in work or in the city, I couldn't escape the feeling that everything had been ripped away. I kept telling myself I'd be fine, that I'd get through this. That the hurt would fade. But deep down, I knew I was broken. There was a part of me that was shattered, and I didn't know how to put it back together. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just hurt in the moment. It lingers. It eats at you. It makes you question everything, the good memories, the trust you had, the future you thought you shared. And the worst part? I couldn't even hate her. Not completely. I was angry, of course. But part of me understood. She was looking for something more, something I couldn't give her. Or maybe she just wanted something that wasn't me. But I had to ask myself, did I even know her anymore? I finally picked up the phone and dialed her number. Jake? Her voice was tentative, like she wasn't sure if I'd even answer. Yeah, I replied, my voice raw. Are you okay? She asked softly, and I could hear the worry in her tone. But I didn't feel like answering that question. Not the way she wanted me to. I don't know, I muttered, my voice trembling. I don't know what to think anymore. She didn't say anything right away, and I could hear her breathing on the other end. I wanted to ask her why. Why she did it. What had changed. But I didn't have the energy. I didn't even have the words. I can't do this, Jake, she finally whispered. I can't be the person you want me to be. I'm so sorry. I squeezed my eyes shut, feeling the weight of those words crash into me. I couldn't even respond. My throat tightened, and all I could do was hang up. And just like that, I was alone again. But this time, it wasn't just the empty apartment I was avoiding, it was the space between us, the gulf that had opened up, and the painful truth that I was no longer a part of her world. I was alone in the dark now. And I didn't know how to find my way back. I was broken. There was no other way to say it. After everything that had happened, I couldn't pretend I wasn't hurting. But the thing about pain? It has a funny way of pushing you to change. I didn't want to be this version of myself, the weak, angry, hurt man who couldn't move on. I didn't want to drown in bitterness and regret. But I also didn't know how to stop it, how to move forward. For the first time in a long time, I actually looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the guy staring back at me. His face was tired, his eyes were hollow, and he looked defeated. This wasn't me, I thought, but a voice inside whispered, yes, it is. You let her change you. I didn't want to be that man anymore. So, I made a decision. It wasn't some big revelation, no dramatic moment. It was a choice I had to make for myself. I wasn't going to let Emily's betrayal define me. I wasn't going to let it consume me. The next morning, I woke up early. The apartment was still empty, and as I sat up on the edge of the bed, I felt the weight of my choices. I could spend another day hiding, another day wallowing in self-pity. Or I could get up and start changing my life. For real this time. I didn't have a plan. But I knew I had to start somewhere. I signed up for a gym, The first step. I knew my body had taken a hit, both physically and mentally, over the past few months. It wasn't just about getting in shape. It was about proving to myself that I was still in control. That I could fight back. It hurt. Every step, every lift, felt like a punishment at first. My muscles screamed, but I pushed through it. I wasn't doing this for anyone but me. I started getting up earlier, making small changes that started to add up. No more late nights in front of the TV. I went out, met up with some friends I hadn't talked to in ages. We didn't talk about Emily. We didn't talk about the past. I didn't need that. I needed to focus on the now, on the future. It wasn't easy. It felt like I was forcing myself to be someone I wasn't sure I could be. But slowly, the changes started to stick. I started feeling stronger. I started feeling alive again. Work was a blur, but in the best way possible. I threw myself into my job, no distractions. Every task I completed was a small victory. My boss even noticed the difference. "You're on fire lately, Jake," he said one day, and for the first time in a long while, I actually believed it. It wasn't long before I felt a shift. At first, I didn't know what it was. It was subtle. The way I held myself. The way I spoke. The way I started thinking about my life, my real life, not the one Emily and I had planned. I stopped thinking about her. I stopped feeling like I was missing something. And then, something amazing happened. I was walking down the street one afternoon, feeling like I was finally finding myself again, when I bumped into someone. It was her. Emily. She was standing there, holding a coffee, looking more put together than I'd seen her in months. But there was something different in her eyes, something that felt distant. Like she wasn't sure what to say to me, or maybe like she didn't know who I was anymore. I had to admit, it was hard to look at her. The woman who had meant everything to me, the woman who had shattered my world with her betrayal, was standing in front of me. She opened her mouth to say something, but I held up a hand. "I'm good, Emily," I said, my voice steady. I didn't feel anger, just a quiet strength I didn't recognize at first. "I'm good." I saw the guilt flash across her face, and for a second, I thought she might break down right there. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She didn't know what to say. "Look, I'm glad you're doing well," I said, cutting the silence. "I really am. But I'm done, Emily. I'm not that guy anymore. I don't need your apology." She looked at me, her expression torn between wanting to reach out and wanting to walk away. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Jake," she whispered, and there was sincerity in her voice. "But it wasn't enough." "I know you didn't," I replied, feeling a strange calm wash over me. "But you did. And I've had to live with that. But I'm not going to keep living in the past. I'm moving forward. So should you." I didn't wait for her response. I turned and walked away, feeling the weight lifting from my chest with each step. It wasn't the closure I thought I'd need. I wasn't angry. I wasn't crying. I didn't feel anything except a sense of freedom. I had finally done it. I had moved on. The truth was, I didn't need Emily to be whole. I didn't need anyone to complete me. I was enough on my own. For the first time in months, I smiled to myself. I wasn't broken anymore. I wasn't that guy who was lost in the dark. I was starting over. And it felt damn good. I was reborn. I didn't expect it to happen. Honestly, I didn't even want it to happen. But sometimes, life has a way of making you face things you aren't ready for. And the truth was, I wasn't ready for Emily to come back into my life. I wasn't ready for her to disrupt the calm I'd finally found in myself. It had been a few weeks since I ran into her on the street, and everything had been quiet. I hadn't heard from her, and I'd convinced myself that I was finally at peace. I wasn't looking back anymore. I was too busy carving out a new life for myself, one that didn't include her. I had people in my life now who made me feel good, and my career was starting to shine. I was finally building the life I deserved, the life I'd been too distracted to see before. But then, one night, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. I thought about letting it go to voicemail. But something about it tugged at me, a gut feeling I couldn't ignore. I answered. "Jake?" Her voice was shaky, unsure. "It's me. Emily." I froze. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. All the emotions I'd worked so hard to push down came rushing back, and I could feel the anger rising in my chest. But I kept it in check. I was stronger now. I didn't need to react. "What do you want, Emily?" I asked, my voice steady. There was silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, as if she were struggling to find the right words. I know I messed up. I can't take back what I did," she said finally, her voice softer now, filled with regret. "But I've been thinking about everything, about how I treated you. And I know I can't undo the past, but Jake, I need you to know that I'm sorry." I could hear the sincerity in her voice, but that didn't change the fact that she had broken me. That didn't change the months I spent feeling worthless, the pain I had to work through to get to this point. But there was something else in her words. Something I wasn't expecting, guilt. Real, raw guilt. "I don't need your apology, Emily," I replied, my voice cutting through the tension. "I've forgiven you. I've let it go. But I can't be the person you want me to be. Not anymore." She let out a long breath. "I don't expect you to, Jake. I don't expect you to just forgive me like that. But I can't move on until you know the truth." "The truth?" I said, narrowing my eyes, though she couldn't see me. "What truth?" I was wrong," she continued, her words coming faster now. "Alex, he was there when I needed someone, but it wasn't right. I wasn't being fair to you. I thought I was doing what I needed to do to feel alive again, but in the end, I just hurt you. And I can't live with that. I've been a mess without you. I've tried to make sense of it all, but I can't. I'm sorry, Jake. I don't expect anything from you, but I needed to say that." Her words were like a punch to the gut. I wasn't expecting her to open up like this, to admit how wrong she was. Part of me wanted to yell, to throw everything back in her face. To remind her of all the things she'd taken from me. But I didn't. Instead, I let her speak. I let her explain herself. And as she did, something shifted inside me. The anger was still there, but now, it was tempered by something else, understanding. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I used to be. Emily wasn't the woman I thought she was. She had her own struggles, her own flaws. And she had made her mistakes. But that didn't mean I had to keep carrying the weight of it all. "Emily," I said after a long pause, "I've forgiven you. You need to let go of what happened." "I've let go." "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "You have to," I replied, my voice soft now. "We both have to. I'm not the same person I was. And I'm never going to be that guy again. But that doesn't mean I'm holding on to the past anymore. It's over. It's time for both of us to move on. There was a long silence after that. I could hear her sniffling, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. But I didn't have the energy to comfort her. I couldn't do that for her anymore. "I'm sorry, Jake," she said again, her voice breaking. "I never meant to hurt you." I let out a slow breath, my hands trembling slightly. "I know, Emily. I know. But I'm done with this. We're done. It's time to move on." She didn't say anything else. I heard her take a shaky breath before she hung up, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand. My chest was tight, but it wasn't the same tightness I'd felt before. It wasn't anger or hurt. It was closure. A heavy kind of peace, the kind you get when you realize that everything you thought you wanted was no longer important. I didn't need Emily to come back. I didn't need her apology. What I needed was the freedom to move forward, and that was something I had finally found. I wasn't the same person anymore. I wasn't the guy who let himself be torn apart by her betrayal. I was the guy who was going to live for himself, for his own happiness. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. I was in control now. And nothing would ever take that from me again. I'd gotten used to the quiet, to the peace that had settled over me. Every day felt like a small victory. I wasn't perfect, but I was getting there. I wasn't defined by the pain anymore. I had let go of Emily, and I was moving on. But what I hadn't expected, what no one had warned me about, was how quickly things could change when karma started working its way into the world. It wasn't long before I started hearing things about Emily. Little rumors. Whispers at work. Conversations with old friends who'd heard things through the grapevine. I didn't want to know. I really didn't. I had made a conscious decision to move on, to stop caring about her life. But like a magnet, the stories kept finding their way to me. The first one I heard was from Rachel, a mutual friend we'd both shared. I ran into her at a bar one evening, and after some casual catching up, she hesitated before speaking. "Jake," she said, her voice low. "I don't know how to tell you this, but Emily. She's been struggling." I didn't feel the anger I thought I might. The jealousy that once would have consumed me was gone. Instead, I just felt an odd, empty curiosity. "What do you mean?" "Struggling with what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Rachel looked around, as if checking if anyone was listening. "Well, you know that promotion Emily wanted? The one she was working so hard for?" I nodded, though I already knew how much it had meant to her. She didn't get it. I felt a small knot tighten in my stomach, but I didn't let it show. "And?" Rachel shifted uncomfortably. She's been spending a lot of time with Alex lately. I mean, I know they were close, but it's bad, Jake. I don't think she's handling it well. The whole thing's falling apart for her." At that moment, I realized something I hadn't before. Emily had been so focused on climbing her career ladder that she hadn't realized how fragile everything else was. She'd pushed me aside, thought she could handle everything on her own, and now, it was all crumbling. Alex wasn't the solution. He was a distraction, a temporary fix, but it wouldn't save her from the consequences of her actions. The news stung, but it wasn't the rage I had expected. Instead, I felt a strange sense of detachment. Her downfall wasn't a victory for me. It wasn't justice. It was just sad. I continued to hear bits and pieces over the next few weeks. Emily had lost the promotion, and her relationship with Alex had hit a rough patch. Work was only getting more demanding, and her personal life was falling apart. The reality of her situation seemed to be catching up with her in ways she hadn't anticipated. She hadn't been able to juggle it all. Then, one afternoon, I received a text from Emily. It had been a while since we last spoke, and the message was short, to the point. "Jake, I need to talk. Can we meet?" I stared at the screen for a while, debating whether or not I should respond. Part of me felt like it was the last thing I wanted to do. I had no interest in getting dragged back into her mess, into her chaos. But another part of me, one that I didn't even fully understand, wanted to see if she had learned anything from all of this. If she was genuinely sorry or just desperate for a way out. I agreed to meet her. We arranged to meet at a small cafe, a place we used to frequent. When I walked in, she was already there, sitting by the window. Her face was pale, and there was a tiredness in her eyes I hadn't seen before. She wasn't the confident, successful Emily I had once known. This version of her was broken. She looked up when I entered, and for a moment, I could see that old spark of recognition in her eyes. But there was something else, too, guilt. A deep, painful guilt. "Jake," she whispered, almost like she wasn't sure I would even want to hear her. I didn't know who else to turn to. I sat down across from her, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. I wanted to ask her what she wanted. Why she was here, after everything that had happened. But I kept my mouth shut, letting her speak. I messed up," she said, her voice cracking. "Everything I thought I was doing to get ahead, to make myself happy. It's all falling apart. I lost the promotion. My relationship with Alex is a mess. And now, I don't even know who I am anymore." I didn't say anything. I wasn't sure how to respond. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. Part of me wanted to remind her of all the things she had taken from me, all the promises she had broken. But I stayed silent, watching her unravel in front of me. "I never meant to hurt you, Jake," she continued, tears welling up in her eyes. "I thought I was doing what was best for me, for us. But I was wrong. I didn't realize how much I was losing until it was too late." Her words didn't make me feel better. They didn't fix anything. I didn't want her apologies. I didn't need them anymore. What she had done, what she had taken from me, was in the past. It was over. "I think I've had enough of the past, Emily," I said softly, my voice steady. "I've moved on. You need to do the same." She nodded, tears falling down her cheeks now. She didn't say anything more. We sat there in silence, the weight of what had been left unsaid hanging between us. As I stood up to leave, I looked at her one last time. She was still the same Emily, the same woman who had once meant everything to me. But now, she was just a reminder. A reminder of what I had lost, but more importantly, of what I had gained by moving on. And as I walked out of the cafe, I realized the fall of Emily wasn't my victory. It wasn't anyone's win. It was just life. And in the end, it was a reminder that what goes around, comes around. I wasn't the same person who would have once felt satisfaction in seeing her struggle. I had grown. I had moved on. And that was enough. I had been holding my breath for months, waiting for this moment to come. I didn't know what it would look like, or how it would feel, but I knew I couldn't keep holding on to the past forever. The truth was, I had been moving on piece by piece, each day a little lighter than the last, a little more whole. And yet, a small part of me had still been clinging to Emily. To the idea of us. To the belief that maybe one day, she'd realize what she'd done and come back to me, asking for forgiveness. But that day never came. Instead, it was me who realized something. It wasn't about her, and it wasn't about the hurt she caused. It was about me. I had spent so much of my life, so much of my emotional energy, investing in someone who was never truly invested in me. I had let myself be broken by her choices, and for what? So I could feel sorry for myself? So I could hang on to the ghost of a life that never really existed? That was the moment I understood. I didn't need her to make me whole. I didn't need anything from her. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her approval. I needed to stop waiting for something that wasn't coming and start living for myself. And that, I realized, was the final step toward freedom. The realization came when I least expected it. It was late one night, and I had been out with some friends at a bar, enjoying myself for the first time in what felt like forever. I was laughing, feeling like myself again, like the guy I'd been before all this happened. I wasn't weighed down by regret. I wasn't haunted by memories of Emily. I was just living. When I walked outside for some fresh air, the cool breeze hit me, and for a brief moment everything stopped. I looked around at the city streets, the lights reflecting off the pavement, and I felt this wave of clarity wash over me. I was free. I didn't owe anything to anyone. I didn't owe Emily my anger, my hurt, or my time. I didn't need her to come back into my life and tell me she was sorry. I didn't need anything from her, because I was strong enough to stand on my own. And for the first time, I felt that truth deep inside me. It was as if a weight had been lifted off my chest, and the last remnants of doubt about my own worth melted away. But then, just as quickly as the clarity came, it was interrupted. I felt my phone buzzing in my pocket. I knew who it was before I even looked at the screen. Emily. I could have ignored it. I could have let it go straight to voicemail, like I had been doing for months. But something in me wanted to hear what she had to say. Maybe because I finally felt strong enough to handle whatever it was. Maybe because I realized that I didn't need to be afraid of the past anymore. I answered the phone, my voice calm, but firm. Emily. Jake, she said, her voice hesitant. Can we talk? It was the same old request. The same tired plea for my attention, for my forgiveness. But this time, I wasn't the same guy who would drop everything just to listen to her. This time, I wasn't begging for her validation. I'm listening, I said, leaning against the wall, staring out into the night. I've been thinking about everything, she began, her words slow, unsure. I know I've hurt you. I know I've done things I can never take back. But I want you to know that I regret everything. I never wanted to hurt you, Jake. You meant everything to me, and I can't undo it. I took a deep breath, exhaling slowly. Part of me wanted to let her talk, wanted to hear her out. But I also knew, deep down, that this conversation wasn't going to change anything. I know you're sorry, Emily, I said, my voice softer now, but I've already forgiven you. I've let go of all of it. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear her trying to process my words. You've let go, she asked, sounding almost desperate. You've really let go of everything? You don't want anything from me anymore? No, I replied, my voice steady, stronger than I'd ever been. I don't need anything from you anymore. I've learned to let go, to move on. I've found peace, Emily. And that's something you can't give me. I could hear her breathing on the other end, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. But I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel pity. I felt relief. Because I knew, in that moment, that I had finally reached the place where I no longer needed her to complete me. I didn't need her to heal me. I had done that all on my own. I'm sorry, Jake, she whispered. I wish I could have been better. I know, I said softly, but you weren't. And I wasn't either. But we've both moved on now. You need to let go, too. There was another silence, but it was different this time. There was no more pleading. No more guilt. Just the sound of her quiet sobs in the background. I'm letting go, Jake, she said, finally. I'm letting go. And with that, I ended the call. I stood there, my phone in my hand, and took a long, steady breath. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't worried about the past. I wasn't worried about Emily, or what she was going through, or what could have been. I had reached the moment of clarity. The moment where I finally understood that my peace, my happiness, my future, it all depended on me. No one else. And that was all I needed. I was free. And now, it was time to live. It's funny how life can change so quickly, isn't it? One moment, you're stuck in the past, weighed down by everything that went wrong, and the next, you're standing on the edge of something new, something you never expected but always needed. The next few weeks after my conversation with Emily were a blur, but in the best way possible. There were no more late-night texts, no more wondering what she was doing, no more thinking about how much I had lost. Instead, I found myself waking up each morning feeling lighter. Like a weight I hadn't even realized was there had finally been lifted. I didn't have to think about her anymore. I didn't have to worry about what might have been. I was free, truly free. I got back into my routine, but this time, it wasn't just about filling the hours. I actually started enjoying my days. I was making strides at work, pushing myself harder than ever before. I'd thrown myself into the grind before, but now, it wasn't a distraction. It was where I found my passion. It was where I could see the results of my hard work. And for the first time, I realized that the satisfaction I'd been looking for all along wasn't going to come from someone else. It was coming from me. But it wasn't just work that was changing. I started dating again. Nothing serious at first, just a few casual dates with women I met through friends or online. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just seeing what was out there. And, honestly, it felt good. Not because I was trying to replace Emily, that was never going to happen, but because I was enjoying myself again. I was letting myself have fun, to laugh, to experience things without the emotional baggage of the past. One night, I went out with a woman named Sarah. We met at a mutual friend's party, and I was hesitant at first. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but she was easy to talk to, and before long, we found ourselves at a small bar, just talking. No expectations. No pressure. Just two people getting to know each other. We hit it off right away. "What's your story, Jake?" Sarah asked, her smile wide, but there was something in her eyes that made me think she could see more than just the surface. "You seem like someone who's been through a lot, but you're not letting it hold you back." I laughed. "You could say that. I've had my fair share of heartbreak, but I've learned how to move forward." "That's rare," she said, her voice softening for a moment. "Most people get stuck." And I realized she was right. I had gotten stuck once. But not anymore. We spent the night talking about everything, from our childhoods to our hopes for the future. By the end of the evening, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: connection. Not the same kind of connection I had with Emily, but something different. Something real. It wasn't forced. It wasn't rushed. It was just easy. The next morning, I woke up feeling a strange sense of peace. I wasn't thinking about Emily. I wasn't comparing anything or wondering if this woman would be the one. I was just enjoying the moment. And for once, that was enough. But the real shift didn't happen overnight. It wasn't about Sarah, or anyone else for that matter. It was about me. About realizing that I didn't need anyone to fill the space Emily had once occupied. I didn't need a relationship to validate me. I was enough on my own. Work became more fulfilling. I got a promotion, one I hadn't expected, but I was ready for it. I was finally in a place where I felt confident, like I was starting to take control of my life in a way I never had before. I was respected by my peers, and my boss made it clear that they trusted me. That felt good. One day, I looked around my apartment, still the same one, the one I'd shared with Emily. I had considered moving out many times. The memories, the ghosts of the past, still lingered there. But instead of running from it, I decided to make it mine. I redecorated. Changed the layout. Took down the photos of us and replaced them with ones that made me smile. It felt like I was finally letting go of what used to be and embracing what was now. I realized that I had everything I needed to build the life I'd always dreamed of. I had freedom. I had a fresh start. And, maybe most importantly, I had peace. I wasn't defined by what had happened with Emily. I wasn't defined by the past. I had created something new. I was no longer the guy who was heartbroken and lost. I wasn't the guy who waited for apologies or for the past to come back and make things right. I was the guy who learned how to let go, who found the strength to move forward, and who finally understood that happiness didn't come from someone else, it came from within. And that was the most beautiful part of all. I wasn't waiting for anything anymore. I wasn't waiting for someone to make me feel whole. I was whole. I was me. And for the first time in a long time, I knew I was exactly where I needed to be. It's funny how you think you've reached the end of something, but then, you realize you haven't. Sometimes, it's not until you're standing at the end of a journey that you realize just how far you've come, and how much you've changed. When I look back now, I can't help but think about how lost I was. How tangled up in Emily's world I'd become. How her betrayal crushed me, how it pulled me down to a place where I felt like I was worth nothing. For a long time, I couldn't see past that pain. I couldn't see who I was without her. I couldn't imagine a future without that life I thought we'd build together. But that was the past. And it doesn't define me anymore. It's been almost a year since that conversation with Emily, the one where I told her I was moving on, where I finally stopped letting the past control me. I've done a lot of growing in that time. I've learned a lot about myself, about the importance of letting go, and most of all, about forgiveness, not for her, but for myself. I still think about Emily from time to time, but it doesn't hurt anymore. What she did to me doesn't sting the way it used to. I'm not angry with her. I'm not bitter. I've accepted it. I've accepted the fact that she made her choices, and I made mine. I can't change what happened, and neither can she. What I can change is how I move forward. And I've moved forward. It wasn't easy. It didn't happen overnight. There were days when I felt like I'd never shake the weight of the past, but I did. Each day, I grew stronger. Each day, I learned how to love myself again, how to find happiness on my own. And when I finally reached that place, when I finally found peace, it felt like a victory. A victory I had earned, not from anything Emily did or didn't do, but from what I had done for myself. I found myself surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me, friends who had been there through the worst of it, and new friends I had met along the way. I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't isolated in my grief. I realized that life moves on, with or without the people who used to occupy your world. And then, there was Sarah. We'd been seeing each other casually at first, just enjoying each other's company without any pressure. But as time went on, I found myself opening up to her in ways I hadn't with anyone in a long time. It wasn't like what I had with Emily, nothing would ever be like that. But with Sarah, there was something real. Something grounded. She didn't complete me, but she added to my happiness. She made me feel seen. She made me feel like I was worthy of love again, not because of my past, but because of who I was now. It was nice. I didn't need Sarah to be happy, but with her, I realized that happiness was something I was ready to share. We took things slow, not rushing into anything, just letting the relationship unfold naturally. And it felt good. It felt right. But I didn't need her to fix me. I was already fixed. I had already healed. I wasn't the man who was afraid of being alone anymore. I wasn't the man who needed someone else to make me feel whole. I was whole. Sometimes, I think about Emily, about how she's doing. I heard from Rachel the other day that she had moved to another city, started over somewhere new. I don't know if she's found what she's looking for, or if she's still chasing the same things she was when we were together. But honestly, I don't care anymore. What mattered was that I stopped waiting for her to fix things. What mattered was that I took control of my own life, my own happiness. The truth is, Emily taught me a lot. But it wasn't the lesson I thought I'd learn. It wasn't about love or trust or forgiveness. It was about learning to love myself, to trust myself, and to never settle for anything less than what I deserve. The hardest part was letting go. The hardest part was accepting that some things are just out of your control. But once I did, once I finally freed myself from the weight of the past, everything else just fell into place. I'm not perfect. I'm not immune to mistakes or setbacks. But I'm stronger now. I've learned to live for myself, not for anyone else's approval. I've learned to trust in my own journey, no matter how messy or uncertain it might be. And as I sit here, thinking about how far I've come, I realize that the best part of all of this is that I'm finally living my life on my terms. I'm not waiting for the past to come back and make things right. I'm not waiting for Emily, or anyone, to save me. I'm living. And that's enough.